Governor Nyesom Wike says the People's Democratic Party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, has not reached out to him for reconciliation. The Rivers State governor's comment comes amidst the crisis rocking the main opposition party in the aftermath of his presidential primaries. Wike lost out on being the party's presidential and vice presidential candidate for the 2023 elections. He says he loves the PDP dearly and will speak soon about statements Mr. Atiku made in an Arise exclusive interview.
First of all, if I've issued a statement through my special assistant on media, it obviously means that I'm going to make a statement or I'm going to speak on issues. In this part of our world, when lies are being concocted and you allow it becomes, people say, this is the true fact. I have always believed that when the left speaks, allow the right to also speak. We're not getting younger every day. As the day passes, you get older. And so it is important that when issues are raised or when speeches are made, you should be able to say, look, this is a part of my own story. And so that the public will be able to put everything together and say, look, this is what we have decided, or this is what we say, this is the truth, and this is a lie. It's most unfortunate. Since after our primaries, I have decided to be quiet because this is a party I love so much. I've never said anything. I decided to go back home and focus on fulfilling the main promises I made to the people of the state. But there comes a time that people will understand and know the true facts of things. So obviously, when I will speak, it is not in doubt that I will speak and let Nigerians know the actual truth. Having known the truth, whatever they decide to do with it is left for Nigeria. Because you can imagine the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku, when he unveiled his vice presidential candidate.
That was Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike reacting to an intra-party situation. But what you heard from him sounds like the predominant narrative across the political spectrum as Nigeria stumbles towards another date with constitutional democracy. To what extent can such demeanor and body language enhance or forge the sort of environment needed for emancipation and rebirth? Well, joining us now to have a discussion around this and a whole lot more is Chris Nwokobia, a lawyer, businessman, public affairs analyst, and convener, Country First Movement. Good morning, Chris. Good to have you join us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The pleasure is mine, Steve.
Good to have you. Yeah.
How do you and Chris know each other?
Yes, we do actually.
That was a very, very cheeky giggle, Steve. What am I missing?
To be Adefemi, how are you?
Thank you. Good morning.
How are you doing?
Adefemi is intrigued that I know you or that we know each other.
Yes.
All right, Chris, let's...
You're my esteemed brother.
You know now.
He's our brother.
Very good.
All right, let's start this way. Country First Movement is gaining momentum. You are addressing issues of national importance. But then last year, you pitched your tent with the Kogi State Governor, in the build-up to the primary elections for the APC. But after he lost, you have moved on to become obedient. What's this about? Is this for you or for country?
Let me say clearly, Steve, that I'm enamored by the question you've asked for 3 reasons. The first is the fact that as you and I talk, this country is in need of strength, energy, vivacity, competency, and capacity. Steve, I'll make an aphorism as I answer that question. The first is that no matter how good you are a footballer, it comes to a point where you have to retire. No matter how good you are a judge, it comes to a point where you have to retire. Where you have no restrictions on age, particularly in politics and in climes where the system operates normally. Some people can say, oh, Biden is almost 80. America can run on autopilot. As bad as the media perceived George Bush, as bad as the media perceived Donald Trump, America was running. America can run because it's a democracy of almost 300 years, and they've been able to grow their institutions. Steve, when I pitched my tent with a young man in Kogi, and I say this without equivocation, he remains in our country today the person who has tackled security the most. And that is the greatest challenge we have in Nigeria today. Kogi State is the only state in Nigeria that has 9 borders, and the Federal Capital Territory makes it the 10th border. And Kogi State is sizably the most secured in Nigeria today. And for me, governance is, don't forget, Steve, that the primary reason for which leadership and governments exist is for the protection of lives and property. And youth, for me, was another phenomenon, another matter. We need a generation of leaders who will think out of the box, think on their feet, run on their feet, and fix the jangling discord of our nation. It came across to me as that. Go and see what he's doing with the little resources in Kogi State, in Kogi. But that's by the way. Now, when he lost, I'm still, by the way, Steve, I haven't formally resigned my membership of the All Progressive Congress, so you can understand where I'm coming from. When he lost, it was consistently in the line of duty for country that would look out for somebody who's not so old, who has shown capacity and competency in governance, who has shown passion for leadership and for our country, who prizes and prides in education. And that came across, of the 4 leading, and I want to be fair to Kwakwanso, of the 4 leading presidential candidates, the one you can say means the best, and mark my use of words, the best for our country, is the former governor of Anambra State. So when I chose to be obedient and useful to the cause for a new nation, I chose to do so for the good of country. There comes a time in the life of a nation where people must take decisions that are not necessarily favorable in terms of lucre, in terms of pecuniary interests, but are favorable for our nation. And I think that the time has come for us to nudge on, push and urge the ballot-based revolution that is cutting across our nation. It's a sweltering harmattan, Steve, and those who have the 2 major tendencies are overwhelmed, benumbed, befuddled, and surprised by what is happening today.
Numb and befuddled. Goodness gracious me. Well, I mean, your answer there was quite interesting because you said that you're still a member of the APC. However, you clearly have some interest in the Labour Party's candidate, Peter Obi. So I do want to ask you, first and foremost, do you think the APC will be able to hold on to power? And secondly, when it comes to Peter Obi, it seems as though he's quite popular with youth on social media. Do you think that he has the ability to turn that online support into actual votes? Or do you think that that's something that's going to stay within the bubble of social media? Perhaps that's the reason why you're still a member of the APC, even though you say that you are interested or you have some sort of affinity along the lines of support for Peter Obi. Is that because you don't actually think he will win, but you do like what he's about? And because you think, in your opinion, perhaps the APC will hold on to power, that's why you're still a member of the party? Give us a bit more clarity on where you're coming from.
I know Peter Obi will win, and I'll give you 3 reasons like I did my initial position. I know Peter Obi will win, and I tell you for surety that he will win. And this is predicated on 2 fronts. on three fronts. The first is that the sweltering harmattan of popular discontent across the country is indiscriminate of political parties. That's point number one. Then point number two is that he has a message that resonates across the old and the young. Then point number three is the fact that the social media that you are talking about, don't forget that in 2019, and I say this without equivocation, that I wasn't a member of the PDP, but because, and I'm going to get a bit personal here, Steve, you and I worked with Ambode in ensuring that Lagos was fixed, in ensuring that we had the best governor in Lagos in a long time. And those who did not think that he meant well for their individualism and personal pocket saw to it that he didn't get a second term. And I'm speaking deeply. Now they didn't care about our country and they edged him out. That's egocentricity at work. As you and I talk today, the reason I'm still in the APC and I will formally resign soon is because there are pressures within the party to ensure that things are done differently. Some people are in court and we hope they get through with, but what the obedient movement epitomizes is a new deal for the masses of our people. Like I said, P2B connects with the people. And I'm back to the third point I told you. Atiku Abubakar in 2019, I was one of the spokespersons of his campaign in 2019, and I'll tell you the reason why I was. Made his declaration on Facebook Live, on the social media. Take note of that. And the reason he did was because he found out that increasingly the Nigerian young people, male and female, the middle ages, are beginning to get politically conscious and active. As I talk to you, when I campaigned for him, I was one of the spokespersons of his campaign in 2019. I did so because the promises that we made to the Nigerian people in 2014, 2015, whilst we were campaigning for the Muhammadu Buhari ticket, I was the DG of Change Ambassadors of Nigeria, one of the arms of his campaign, were not fulfilled. Now they are worse. Sadly, and I'm being humble here, the APC wants to throw on the Nigerian space. We're moving away from a medical tourist as president, and they want to give us the oldest president we'd ever had. And the issues of age and fakery is there in the news media, is everywhere, and I'm ready if litigation comes to face it. So Arise TV shouldn't bother. If you go to Google, you see two different ages of the same leading candidate of the APC. If you go around, you have questions as to his age and competency. And Nigeria cannot move. The Christians will say affliction will not happen a second time. We cannot move from one feeble president. And I tell you why. I was talking to someone yesterday and I said to him, our dear president told us that he wasn't going to be such a successful president a year into his tenure. And I quote him. He said, if he were younger, he would do better than he's doing today. So there was a caveat. Now, are we going to clearly walk the same path again? The answer is a capital letter, no. And that's why I believe that a candidate, because it's about country, I believe that the time has come for us to fix, rework, reset, and make this country great again. And that's why, Adefemi, that's why I am rooting and supporting the candidate of the Labour Party. For me, I have used words that are very strong. I am profusely, profoundly, and unequivocally obedient and useful to the cause for a new Nigeria.
All right, Chris, I mean, that's pretty obvious, but, let me stay a bit more with this same subject, but, from a slightly different angle. You supported the Kogi State governor to pick the APC ticket, which he didn't. One of the reasons why you did that, apart from, his approach to issues of security, was also on account of his age. So I'm wondering that, yes, if you are no longer in tune with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar, maybe essentially on account of age, why are you not considering, say, Edumebi Kachiku, who is a lot more younger than Peter Obi, or if you add activism, you know, to the fray, Anomo Yele Sowore, for example.
Why not my brother Sowore?
Absolutely. So I'm asking, this obedient thing, it can't just be on account of age and popularity. What is the Obi deal, you know, that you think that, you know, you can tell Nigerians in few words that you know, that will make sense?
Gracefully, the obedient team, Obi as governor of Anambra State took Anambra State from about the 26th position in terms of educational performance to number 1. You can't grow a nation without putting primacy on education. Obi was frugal. He wasn't a spendthrift. I argued with him a few times and I said, it would have been better if you had invested these resources in the monies you saved in infrastructure and other things than save the money. And he said, in the course of governance, I found out that most of the people around me were more profligate. They wanted to spend these monies. And I was more concerned about making sure Anambra works and then leaving a legacy. And don't forget, the video went viral where the immediate past governor of Anambra State said that it was the monies that will be left behind that is used in building the airport in Anambra State. So he did well in terms of being frugal and saving money for the people, building education and infrastructure. And for me, Steve, I don't know whether you know that Dumebi is my namesake. My name is Chukwu Dumebi. I'm sure you know.
Yes, I do.
And he's from my state. He's from my state, a few local governments away from me. We're all the same Anioma-speaking Igbo stock. And for me, you know, when you talk about, that's exactly why in politics, you know, like you noted, I'm not just an activist, I'm a political activist. I've been active in politics since 1992, 1993, when I was just about 20, 21 years of age. I was involved in Hope 93, the efforts to reactualize the June 12 mandate of Chief M.K. Abiola of blessed memory. So I have looked at, of the tendencies for a new Nigeria, who is most likely to win 2023 election? Who has constituted himself into a monstrous movement for good? Whose popularity and connect is strong enough to turn our country for good? Who has shown profound passion and commitment for a new Nigeria? And without equivocation, of all the candidates, P2B stands tall and stands out. And then secondly, Sowore is my brother. We're all together in the trenches in the effort to actualize the June 12th mandate of Chief M.K. Abiola. I respect him. I love him. Steve, don't forget that this effort of young people in trying to make Nigeria better was pioneered by my humble self. I was a presidential candidate in 2011 when I was just about to be 40. Shetima Yerima of Arewa Youth Consultative Forum was my vice presidential candidate. I threw up the challenge that led into the not too young to run movement and eventually the bill and the law. So I understand that our generation must take back our country. I understand the need to rescue our country, but fundamentally, in war, you look at the best and the quickest way to achieving what you want to do. And today we have a sweltering harmattan raging through our country, and it's a call for a ballot box revolution. It's a ballot-based revolution, and that ballot-based revolution is albeit peaceful. You have seen the candor the charisma and the disposition of P2B. Sometimes I wonder whether he understands that campaign for the presidency is an electoral war. But be that as it may, you know, in your opening remark, you talked about the need for a temperate and a tempered environment where the heat wouldn't be too much. And P2B epitomizes civility in political contestation. But I believe that our country needs a man who's not only passionate about how things are done, but a man who understands that education should be of primacy, a man who understands that we must grow what we eat, a man who understands that at the core of our economic malaise is the fact that we have left our farms unsecured as a reason of insecurity, that we have left our economy unfixed because we haven't grown wealth. We don't have a culture of exporting wealth and goods and services. So I think that the time has come for those who are out there, and indeed you and Adefemi, to think about being obedient if it's possible.
I'll follow Steve's lead on that.
Well, we spell our own obedience with E and not with I. So
that's correct.
You know, that's the proper
correct.
English in which it is spelled. So we are obedient if the spelling is correct. But let me quickly ask you. You said you might soon leave the APC. Am I correct to assume that you're leaving for Labour Party?
I may not become a card-carrying member of a Labour Party, but I will profoundly, profusely, and committedly work for P2B to become the president of Nigeria.
Okay, the reason why I asked that question is what people are saying about his chances. And clearly, yes, there is a revolution kind of a thing. There's a movement, you know, that Mr. Peter Obi represents. We may not know at this point how much of that will translate into actual vote on that day. But then we're not God. We do not know, you know, what will happen in February 2023. Right. My concern is that people think that even outside, much more than the Southeast, that Peter Obi's popularity is significant in Lagos State for reasons of, you know, the youthful population, to an extent Southeastern population, etc. And therefore, they think that Labour Party might constitute a major voting bloc, but only if they get their candidacy right. But as you know, at this point, Ifagbemi Awamaridi is the gentleman holding the Labour Party's ticket. And it doesn't look like before August 12th deadline is ready to leave that ticket for anybody. I'm aware that Moshood Salvador has run full circle from PDP to APC and is now in Labour trying to get the same ticket. Gbadebo Rosevivor moved away from PDP after he lost the primaries to Jide Jandor Adediran. Is now in Labour Party also looking for the ticket. What do you think that how do you think that the Labour Party should approach Lagos, given the widespread belief that Lagos will be one of the key areas where it stands a good chance of at least picking a state or picking a substantial amount of votes towards 2023?
Steve, that's a big one. Initially, those who are scared of the popularity of P2B would say, oh, there are no structures. Look at what happened in Adamawa yesterday, and look at what is happening in Lagos. Everyone sees the Labour Party as a big bride. I know that there are internal workings, and I speak with the Labour leadership. So I know that there are a lot of efforts trying to resolve certain issues, because not only is the P2B, the obedient and useful movement resonating across our land, it's the answer to so many questions that bother the Nigerian people. And Steve, I would humbly correct that it is not so much of the Southeast emotions. Obi resonates beyond, and the Labour Party today resonates beyond ethnicity, religion, and region. And I say this advisedly. I'll give you an information before I deal decisively with that question. The biggest campaign office for a presidential candidate today is actually the campaign office of Peter Obi, donated to him by a northerner in Abuja. That's how serious it is. It wasn't donated by somebody from the southeast, the southwest, or the south-south. It was donated to him by somebody from the north because it connects with the need to educate their Manjiri kids. It connects with the need to grow our economy. It connects the need to revive and revamp our security architecture. And that's, by the way. Now, what is happening in Lagos is a reflection. You know that Lagos is a melting pot of the nation's ideology and psychology. And I say again that Lagos is not just Lagos. Lagos is a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so the emotions across Lagos is about the need for a new tendency in leadership. And that's why Labour Party is considered the bride for now. And I believe that it will deepen further. Between now and August, when Labour Party will have to resolve and confirm with INEC who would fly the flag of the party in Lagos, the party at the federal level and the state level are talking. And I believe that that will be resolved for good. Don't forget also that Jadon is my friend. So my emotions are really caught between the Labour Party and the individual, not necessarily the party. And Steve, if you notice that something is happening across our land that is very interesting, people are not talking so much about the party anymore. They're talking about candidates. Adeleke did not win in Oshu because he was a card-carrying member of a party, the PDP. He won because he connected with the people. He won votes because he went around and did seriously campaign amongst the people. Because if you don't forget that most of the people who were in the campaign council did not attend the grand finale of the campaign, but he still won. The point is that Nigerians are beginning to think beyond, permit my use of word, the behemoth and the Leviathan. I see the APC as the behemoth. I see the PDP as the Leviathan. For so long, between these two parties, Nigerians have lost over 60 months of academic years, of academic time. Between the PDP and the APC, ASU has been away from school for about 60 months. As you and I talk under this present administration, ASU has been out of school for about 29 months. So I don't think that the APC has bragging rights. And I don't think that the PDP has boasting rights. I think that the time has come for us to do things differently. And that is why the preponderant number of our young people across this country are increasingly becoming obedient and useful. And let me say this, that regarding the structure, you must have seen stickers everywhere where individuals are saying that, oh yeah, everywhere, I am the structure, I am the structure. Because whether you like it or not, those who win elections are human beings. Whether you like it or not, the PVC will be the instrumentality for a new administration come 2023. And I'm aware that you know, Steve, that between last year and this year, about 15 million new voters have been added to the registrar. And as you and I talk, it didn't take more than 15 million votes for Mr. President to win the election in 2014. So if you have 15 million new voters, it tells you that the massive ballot-based peaceful revolution that we're talking about is gaining strength, primacy, and traction.
Alrighty, I think we have a few more minutes left before we have to let you go. But I do want to ask your opinion on PVC registrations. They actually end on the 31st of July, which is just tomorrow. And over social media, just yesterday, I saw people struggling to register the PVC, albeit they had left it to seemingly the last minute, but they were struggling to register. And when, again, you see the demography of Peter Obi's supporters, they do seem to stem from the same younger pool of Nigerian voters. What do you think needs to be done to first and foremost ensure that his support doesn't begin and end on social media and actually does translate into votes? If we use the PVC registration drive as an example, do you think that this is an example of how Peter Obi can muster up more support into actual votes?
Definitely, the answer is very clear. The monstrous excitement and interest underscores the fact that it is beyond the social media. If 15 million persons have registered and they're still begging to register and they're still pushing, then it tells you that they're beyond the social media. And it tells you that Nigerians are ready for a new deal and a new awakening. And then besides that reality is the fact that if those who are members of the Leviathan and the Behemoth, advisedly the APC and the PDP, will decide to send thugs to stop people from registering to vote in Lagos, it means that they know that the movement is beyond the social media. I think that the Nigerian people have increasingly said, in no uncertain terms, that they are the structures that will cause a new deal and the birth of a new tendency in Nigeria. I am very excited. I am very positive. I've told my friends that the time for us to see, all of us, to see the cup as half full rather than half empty is now. Nigerians are saying that together with their thumb, their PVCs, they will vote a new Nigeria come 2023. And I believe that like history and metaphysics has its place. In 1993, about 3 decades ago, Nigerians voted for a new deal in Abiola. And unfortunately, we didn't achieve that. In 2023, God willing, Nigerians will vote for a new deal in Peter Obi, and God on the throne will actualize it and achieve a new nation come 2023.
All right, Chris, just one more question before we let you go, because we have actually run out of time. I'm just wondering, and I think that reflects what many Nigerians are also thinking. Yes, they may like a Peter Obi, particularly the youth. But then, is this not like, is there no sense of deja vu in all this? Looking for a pious, messianic figure who, if he now gets there, ends up disappointing people. When Goodluck Jonathan was coming, it was the same piety. You know, I had no shoes, you know, from humble beginnings, etc. Buhari was sold to Nigerians as a man who couldn't even afford his own farm. A man with less than 30 or 40 cattle, you know, in his farm in Daura. Piety, messianic figure. Now Peter Obi is coming, doesn't spend shishi, is akagom, you know, as they say, but then we think that he's got the power to right all the wrongs and, you know, everything that is wrong with Nigeria. But this is a man who admits that he doesn't spend money. But his adversaries, his opponents, are loaded with heavy war chest. So 2 things, Chris. Are we not going to fall into the same messianic figure that gets there and gets overwhelmed by the system? And then secondly, people movement without money movement. How visible is that?
Steve, this is I think this is just about, with all sense of respect to Adefemi and yourself, this is just about the most important question here. Let me say here that Peter Obi hasn't said he has no shoes. He has chosen not to be profligate. Peter Obi is a billionaire by every standard. I'm not even sure whether the 2 leading candidates are richer than him. He's been a billionaire since his 30s. So he's not saying that, oh, I don't have money. He's consistently said that I don't waste money. I don't indulge in profligacy. If there's anybody who has supported creativity, who has been the most philanthropic in Anambra State, he's one of them. Go check the records. He's built churches and schools. He says, I send my money to very verifiable and veritable projects. I don't spend them on profligacy. That's point number 1. And then point number 2, he hasn't said he will not spend monies on the campaign. He said, I won't waste my resources on things that do not matter. And that's what he's been. A chairman of a bank in his 30s, consistently one of the biggest importers of products and exporters of goods in this country. He hasn't said, I do not have shoes. He hasn't said, I have only 150 cows. He's saying that I would work with Nigerians to create wealth. I will work with Nigerians to revamp our educational system. I will build infrastructures, and I will not waste the resources of this country. That's exactly what he's saying. And that is what resonates with the young people of this country. Because for so long, Steve, look at it. This country is so poor. As you and I talk, the naira is about 700 naira to $1. As you and I talk, there's hunger in the land. But members of our National Assemblies are one of the highest paid in the world. Everything about our country comes to profligacy. And the need for frugality is one of the reasons that there will be Dati ticket resonates. Don't forget that Ahmed Dati, was one of the first persons who moved the motion for financial discipline whilst he was in the National Assembly. He's a professional in economic matters and procurement issues. And so we have about the best ticket we have ever had in the history of our country. We have two people who believe that money should be spent on doing the right thing and not on partying and not on health medical tourism and not on buying properties overseas whilst our educational system suffers. Steve, as you and I talk, we hear that monies are going to be spent on social securities. The ones that have been spent over the past 7 years we haven't seen, whilst ASU remains on strike. That's a tragedy of sorts. And so we're talking about a new thinking in leadership, and that's what Peter Obi epitomizes. We're talking about a new tendency in leadership. That is what he represents. And we're talking about a new deal for the Nigerian people, and that is his unequivocal commitment. And I do sincerely think that the time has come for us who truly want a new Nigeria where things work, where there's justice, equity, and fairness, where our resources are judiciously spent to support the Obi Dati ticket. The time has come for us to make our country better, great again, and make our people truly proud of the green, white, green.
All right, Chris Nwokobia, the very obedient convener of Country First Movement. We want to thank you so much for joining us on the morning show today. Thank you. We've enjoyed the time with you. Thank you.
The pleasure is mine.